All right, so I'm back and I've got a new version of my Rabbit Attack game. This time it's called version 2. No different than version 1 right now. Again, just trying to keep a record of all the changes that I've made. So this game, it's right in the last video, remember we made it so we could play again, and it'll keep we can keep playing again until we finally say no, we don't want to. But there was this part of the code I didn't like, which is I have this yes/no question, and if it's yes, you set some Boolean to true, and if it's something else, you set it to false. And I have that exact same logic repeated down at the bottom, just with a different question. All right, literally the only thing different in my code is the text of the question. And when you see something like that, that should be an indication that it's time to incorporate a function into your code. So I'm going to make a function up at the top. And it's going to be ask a yes/no question. And the argument I'm going to make my function take is going to be the text of the question I want it to ask. All right, so now we need an input prompt. So it's going to be real similar to this line of code here. I'm just going to say answer equals input, only this time, instead of having the question text, I'm just going to have it print whatever is in this question variable. And then I guess I can also do this. Okay. I like having a little yes or no at the end of it. So I'll just make that part of the way the function works. And so we don't have to pass in the yn right to the function itself. And then I'm going to go here and I'm going to say if answer is equal to y, we'll return true, else we'll return false. Okay, so there's my generic, like my logic or abstract logic for this little chunk of code and for this little chunk of code here. All right, so now I'm going to leave this here for a second just so you can see it for comparison, but what I'm going to be able to do is take all 5 lines of code here and condense them down to 1 because I have this function. And so remember, my function returns true or false, so I'm going to make a new variable or a new line of code that's called use grenade. And I'm just going to say ask yes, no. And all I have to do is copy this into there. All right. So now this one line of code replaces all of that. So let's think about what happens here. I'm going to get rid of this now. And what happens is, right, this side will get executed first. So it goes up to the ask yes no function and it passes this sentence, shall we use the holy hand grenade in? It will print, the input prompt is going to print, shall we use the holy hand grenade? Because that's what we passed in. It's going to tack on a little y/n there just for some, to help a user understand what they're supposed to do with the prompt. And then it's going to check what they typed in, and if they type in a y, it's going to return true, and therefore, right, the return value for this function will get stored into the use grenade Boolean variable. And if I typed in something other than y, this function will return false, and use grenade will get set to false. So at this point, you might look at it and go, well, I don't really see the benefit of this because we actually, we had it was originally 5 lines of code. Now I have 6 lines of code for my function plus an extra line here, right? My game increased by 2 lines of code. But now I also get to go down to the bottom and we have this variable playing, right? And I'm just going to say I can get rid of all of this and I can say playing equals, and I'm going to say ask yes, no, would you like to play again? right? And now, this is where the function is starting to become useful, because the first time through it actually added a little bit of code to my program, but the next instance of needing to ask a yes/no question, right, I was able to take those lines of 5 and condense them down, right, to 1. And I'm just going to test to make sure it works exactly the same as it did before. So let's see. Shall we use the holy hand grenade? We'll say no. We'll say yes, it worked. And would you like to play again? Yes, yes. And would you like to play again? No. And the game ends, right? So didn't actually add any features to the game here. It's still, right, it behaves identically. The difference is it's much nicer code, and I have this function now that can be useful, right, 2 times in this program, but actually this could be used in any program where we need to deal with yes/no functions. All right. If you want a little peek ahead with some of the problems I have with this code, one of the things I don't like right now is that the answer of yes will return true, but right, if I run this, you can see that anything that's not a Y gets interpreted as a no. Even if I typed in yes instead of just a Y, it gets interpreted as a no, because we're only checking for the right, for the character Y specifically. So what we can do in the next version of this is start to think about how we can incorporate some input validation into this program. And if the user of our program doesn't enter something correctly, rather than killing off one of their knights, we can just nicely re-prompt them for input. All right, so that's what we'll do in the next video.